Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today, joining us live from the US, we have Baez. He is a revenue enablement strategist, sales coach, and he's dedicated to serving executives and sales leaders at businesses. Welcome to the show, Luis.
Thank you, Ajay. It's a pleasure to be here.
Same here, Luis. Same here. Nice to get you on the show, and welcome to the show, and welcome to India in this online form. And not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk about. We'll be talking about aligning automation and authenticity in sales. So my first question, Luis, is to understand something related to sales itself. The thing is, in the last couple of years, especially, a lot of conversation has just moved towards sales, sales, and more sales. And there is no talk about the customer. Earlier, there used to be talk about customer. Customer is the king.
Yeah.
So what is happening is it almost looks like, the industry is telling its salespeople that become the artful dodger, almost like a pickpocket, and go take out the money out of your customers and then just vanish. We will vanish and the only bots will exist, and that's all. That is happening, and this is just it seems to be a global phenomenon. I want to understand, you have been into this line for many years. You train a lot of people. You have been with the many big companies, LinkedIn, Google, Uber, Tesla, and more. It cannot get bigger than this. Help us understand this part of the conversation. Is it deliberate? Is it that there is a particular reason that the industry can give that, okay, this is why we are doing what we are doing, forgetting the customer, but only his money?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of it is reaction to pressure and shifts in markets and the way that industries move. And so there's been this emphasis on revenues because, of course, we want to keep businesses up and running. And as we think about the opportunity to grow our businesses, we're also thinking about appealing to investors. And investors right now are looking for specific margins and metrics and things to feel confident about making their investments. And so there's this added pressure to deliver revenue metrics that make it enticing, right, for other people to invest in businesses. And so that's what's happening behind closed doors. I think globally, of course, there's been a shift, to your point, in the way that people connect with people and the way that businesses connect with people, right? The pandemic has accelerated the way that we engage with customers virtually. And in that process, we've stripped the sort of authenticity and the humanization and personalization of buying experiences across different industries, whether you're purchasing clothing, right? Or whether you're purchasing a vehicle or investing in software for your business or whatever it might be. Everyone has gotten into hacking and trying to figure out how to squeeze opportunity and how to drive the metrics. And often there's an oversight of what that experience is like from the customer's point of view. And I encourage people to actually start there, because as much as we have shifted the way that we sell, there's also been a shift in the expectation of the way that people buy. And a lot of it is, there are all these statistics to suggest that people love self-driven buying experiences, and they want human or, people assistance at certain points in their buying experience. And so those are things to be very attuned to as you're visiting the way that you do business.
Right. You talked about driving the metrics, and it's almost like creating a different, situation like a matrix, where the customer does not know how to break that matrix and find himself or herself in the real form. Be that as it may, then when investors and everyone else is the focus, why these companies, and especially many of these tech companies, why do they talk about solving a problem? Let's talk about pain problems of the customers. Let's solve it. And afterwards, you get some money, the investor money, the customer is gone. What would they say to this? Would anybody believe them? Would anybody? Because now because the topic is aligning automation and authenticity. How will you put authenticity when it is all about automation, when it's all about investors? How does that work? Let's bring in the authenticity part into the discussion now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that there are a number of ways to engage with customers beyond um, positioning the value and the pains that you solve, right? I think that there is a lot of emphasis on finding a problem to solve and then marching out and getting those revenues, because that is the sort of approach that these legacy multinational, multi-billion or trillion-dollar businesses, that's the kind of thinking that they're founded on. And so other businesses are looking to think the same ways or incorporate that line of thinking into their processes. And there has been a lot of business, lecture and content and things like that around, hey, if you're really good at solving a problem, then the revenues are deserved. Right, rather than the other approach, which is like, let's throw something out there and try to squeeze as much as I can. And the intention behind, solving a problem is actually rooted in empathy for the customer. It's just been misinterpreted and misplaced in the way that founders today have sort of leveraged that kind of thinking. But the idea is that if you are in a position to provide something for a customer that no one else can or does, or if you can do it in a way that is elevated or thoughtful, or really changes the way that things are done, then by focusing on that customer experience and being feverish about it, the revenues will follow. The matter of authenticity and aligning that with your automations, that's a matter of recognizing that as your business grows, your capacity is limited no matter how many people you have on your team. And so there's an opportunity, rather than, for example, on the sales side of the house, writing detailed emails for each and every customer, you might leverage things like videos. Whenever you get common questions, you might get 10 questions typically from your customers throughout their sales journey. Oh, can I customize it this way? Or can I get it that way? Or can we accelerate the timeline? Or can I add this feature? Whatever that might be, you get those questions often. So rather than answering those questions each and every time as they come, you might use a template and sort of templatize your response. But then to take that automation a step further, you could record a short video, right? We're all at this point really accustomed to the TikToks and the Instagram videos and short form videos that are very educational. And so if you meet people where they are and how they're used to consuming and how they're used to buying, then you can look at, from that perspective, incorporating short form videos into these email responses. So not, and recording one video once and always having that response every time that you get that question, because you come on the camera, you get away from this sort of like automated bot looking and feeling email. There's a human being looking at the camera, talking to me directly, answering the question, giving me confidence that they know what they're doing and that I can trust them with my money. Right. And that humanizes the experience. It's like, oh, this person is paying attention. And so those are some of the ways to tactfully think about incorporating, that piece of authenticity in your automations.
Right, Louis. So where is this whole uh, say sales thing going and the customer service thing going? Is it automation? Is it going to create a better situation for everyone, or is it going to be much more difficult in the days to come? Because there are a lot of great people, great companies who are trying to work and actually trying to create a good situation for their customers. But the problem is the dubious guys, if I may call so, because of their behavior, because of the so-called best practices they are trying to set in, is actually creating a lot of mistrust. Like, it becomes difficult to buy things when things can be bought, and that was the level of trust earlier on, but that is gone. So I want to understand, what is it that when you coach, do the sales coaching, and you talk to business leaders, what is the problem that they come to? They want a solution to the problem, or are they the problem themselves? I want to understand, how do you address that? Have you ever told anyone that you are the problem? and not anything else is?
I'm not as that direct with people. I don't think that people would listen to me if I
My
walked
job is to
into a
ask
room
the
that way.
right questions. You see, I don't endorse things here, nor companies, nor people. My job is to ask questions, give solutions to my audience, and
Yeah.
also take their problems to the people down here, whoever is listening. I do not have a tremendous amount of viewership, but whoever is listening.
Yeah. I think the important thing when I enter a conversation with someone who is looking to elevate their customer experience and their revenues in the process, and especially as a leader, right? When we think about what is the one skill or capacity that you can develop that would have the greatest impact for you as an individual and for the rest of your teams and your customers? And it's about active listening. It's about really taking an approach, not of like, hey, I have something to offer. Check this out. Click here. Do this. Do that. It's a matter of being able to connect with that customer and say, talk to me. What's going on? Why does it matter to solve this? How much time does it take you to do that? How much money are you losing out on by spending and spinning your wheels over here this way, right? I think that if you can get to a place where you just don't listen, but you question with curiosity and you dig a little deeper, that then influences the rest of the way that you're able to build empathy into the way that you build your business. By really understanding the customer's voice, you then are in a position to communicate that to your marketing team. And they can then create experiences and content that are aligned with that customer and what it is that they want and expect, right? If you understand the customer's struggles and the things that are blocking them from seeing or feeling the success that they want and deserve, if you can communicate that to your sales teams, then they can reapproach how it is that they engage their customers, the kinds of questions that they ask, or the information that they introduce, right? And even as you revisit some of your automations or some of your online shopping experiences and things like that, there are ways to even think about revisiting how it is that customers can connect with you, right? I mentioned video and emails. There are now video chatbots, right? Like the founder or head of a team on the company, they can pop up on the page in the corner the same way a chatbot would. But instead of this automated, like here, click here to respond to me and ask me a question, it's like you have a person that pops up and waves at you and introduces themselves and understands, hey, you're on this page because you want this and you're probably stuck on that, so why don't you try this, right? There's an opportunity to guide the customer experience and then again break up the monotony of those automations with some humanization.
Right, right. I guess the problem that we discussed is more about the, say, business to consumer. What about B2B sales? Is the situation for the customer or business better there? It seems like they are a bit, afraid of losing a large chunk of revenue. So they are much more nicer to businesses. Businesses are nicer to businesses because they will lose the client. How does that work? Is it a better situation there? And are the problems different than B2C?
Yeah. It's interesting. I think my perspective is unique in that whether it's a B2B or B2C sales motion, at the end of the day, you're connecting with humans that are driven by personal interest and a desire to minimize risk. And so when I think about, to your point for these business to business customers, I'm engaging with leaders that are afraid of making the wrong moves, making the wrong investments, faltering, compromising their reputation, and ultimately losing their jobs, right? Everyone is on guard right now. They want to do their absolute best. And so what an opportunity to break up that like aggressive sales approach with a more humanized approach, right? And thinking about using language that isn't overly loaded with jargon and that's, business or technical jargon, right? And instead, just a very straightforward and simplified language. It's like, hey, when I talk to people in your position, they're losing sleep because they've got these three problems. Does this sound like you? If so, I'm happy to talk about how I helped other people with the same problem, right? That is not loaded with any, business jargon or legalese or technical, It is human to human at the end of the day. And I think that that's why I've had success, because I'm not a typical sleazy, sharky, aggressive salesperson. I'm actually the person who steps into the room and goes, "You look like you're having a bad day. What's going on?" Right? Rather than like, "Hey, look at me and look what I can do. And I'm such an expert and such a guru." Right? Very different approach.
So does this approach still work, or is it the age of only bots? Because you talk about authenticity nowadays. Is authenticity possible for salespeople in the type of investor-driven operations that we are having? We just discussed that. Is it
Yeah.
possible? Is
I
it
think
possible to be you anymore? To have many of you like you in the system?
it's required to do business now. I think that any customer, B2B, B2C, at whatever level of investment they might be making, they don't want to do business with people that don't stand for something, that are too cookie cutter and sound robotic. And at the end of the day, especially when you're talking about larger investments, the secret is that as much as you need to leverage data to influence people and appease all their logical thinking, the sale is usually emotionally driven. Because if two people bring the same solution to you and the same numbers and the same logic, then you're going to go with the person that you are more likely to trust and who is more likely to be real with you.
Right, right. One more thing is, now, since a lot of bots are there dealing with you, a lot of information is being provided by the bots. Somehow, at some point in time, I guess humans can lie, but bots will give you something in writing that becomes a record for the future. Humans may come and just lie to you. How does that situation pan out? Because many a times, verbally, you say something, you promise something, and everyone does not keep a record of everything.
Hmm.
Online, you still can use all those recording machines or whatever it is during the chat, or even the bots, whatever information they provide, they will provide you in writing many a times.
Yeah. So I think that, yeah, that now we're going into like this ethical territory as opposed to the operational and sort of skill-based territory that we've been talking about
Authenticity,
till
we are
now.
talking about
Yeah,
authenticity. Is it
absolutely.
practically possible for a salesperson to be authentic if we actually want it to be that way? Though we want it to be, it's not utopia. We have been like this, but I'm talking about the present trend. Is it possible?
Yes, right. And that's a matter of how you enable and train these sales reps and the tools that you give them, the guidance, the coaching, the training, the precedent that you set, the guardrails that you create around their behaviors and their performance, right? But that's separate from this other intention that you were talking about of businesses misrepresenting and using artificial intelligence and, people lying to one another or technologies creating lies. That's an entirely separate sort of ethical realm where leadership has to step in and really come to a consensus around their policies around how these tools are leveraged and exactly the customer experience that you're trying to drive. It does require thoughtfulness, right, to avoid any experience that would bring any question or compromise your reputation or your business's reputation in any way, right? That has to be thoughtful and intentional on your part. Unfortunately, like anything else, we can't control, right? There's no regulation around this around the world just yet. And so we can't control people who have ill intentions. But I think that today's consumer is much savvier than we think or allow in our minds. And so, we have to trust that the consumer will know, that they're investing with the right person if we show up for them in the right ways.
Absolutely, absolutely. Customers uh, are very smart these days, and they know, they are trying to be much more smarter and understand who is the real guy and who is just talking, just trying to be extra smart. That is not required in any market. I want to understand one thing is that in this present market, you say you are about helping business owners and employees build themselves as better people. So do we assume they are not better people, or how do you intend to do that uh, in
Yeah.
whatever you do?
In my line of work, I coach and teach principles of entrepreneurship within businesses. And so there's a lot of emphasis on the entrepreneur and being a leader in that capacity. But there's opportunity to infuse that kind of thinking, ethic, those kinds of behaviors across your entire team if you empower and enable them to. And so I work with people to develop that mental and work capacity, that leadership capacity, analytical capacity, written and spoken capacity to show up as someone within a business who owns a piece of that business, has a greater degree of self accountability and self motivation, and therefore is a more impactful contributor within the organization. And so the work that I do is showing people and teaching people and elevating leadership. And of course, it's all done through the lens of authenticity, right? Because I am someone that is not typically welcomed in the industries that I work in, because I am someone from several minority groups. And so I have nothing but myself to be or show up as when I step into a room. And yet I have seen success in my career precisely because I don't fit the mold of that sleazy, sharky sort of sales executive. And so I now teach those methodologies across different teams.
Okay, okay. So if that strategy is not working, it means we are in for some good times in terms of meeting genuine people on the other side of sales, and that is a good thing. That is a good thing. And if that is the case, it's something to be welcomed. So in this backdrop, a lot of people who want to understand more about sales, more about the right kind of sales, not the sleazy kind of sales. What is the best way for them to learn more from you and to connect with you, so that they are able to connect with you and learn a lot from you?
I appreciate this so much, Ajay. If you are interested in learning more about my approaches and methodologies around authentic selling, then head on over to learnfromluis.com.
Wonderful, wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.